Gap and Abercrombie & Fitch are two American companies, both of which have a different sub-brands. They have grown their operations at home as well as internationally, specializing in apparel and accessories for men, women, and kids. In the case of Abercrombie & Fitch, they target more young customers up to 25-30 years old. There's a significant difference in the number of stores open worldwide, with over 3,000 for Gap and slightly more than 1,000 for Abercrombie & Fitch.
In this analysis, we found that the threat of substitute was very high. Gap and Abercrombie & Fitch are both a clothing retail store. Although there's no real substitute for this kind of product, e.g. clothing, there are some major threats. The threat consists of high-quality brands, internet clothing companies such as one of the major ones, ASOS, and low clothing retail companies who provide very cheap alternative. We also found that the bargaining power of buyers was really high for both these competitors. This was because customers have a lot more choice. On the other hand, we found that both threat of new entry and bargaining power of suppliers were weak to moderate. This was because both Gap and Abercrombie have started to create an environmentally friendly product. Also, we found that Gap had an upper hand in the bargaining power of suppliers because it has self-owned factories, unlike Abercrombie & Fitch, who has to deal with 240 suppliers.
Political factors always have an impact on businesses, which result in disruption for the operation of the company as a whole, including franchisees as well as the sourcing manufacturers. Economic factors affecting companies' performance include unemployment, high consumer debt levels, market decline, fluctuating interest rates, and credit availability. These all have impact on levels of consumer spending. Because Gap depends on third parties, it is challenging for them to keep up with the changing social cultural trends. For Abercrombie & Fitch, under the social culture point of view, they have been criticized for their unethical advertising campaigns, which do not conform with the beliefs of most of their customers. Gap continues to evaluate and implement upgrades and changes to their IT systems, some of which are significant. Additionally, Gap has its IT services in agreement with IBM, and so does Abercrombie & Fitch, and IBM operates a certain significant aspect of their IT infrastructure. The two companies are subject to lower regulations at the local and international level that have effects on their business operation. For example, sometimes the labor and employment laws require them to modify their current business practices. Suppliers, companies, and customers are all interconnected one to another. Any disruption in the supply of the material used or lack of availability in the quality of the fabrics used to produce their merchandise can have direct effect on the cost of goods or ability to meet customer demand.
We also analysed competitors' analysis benchmarking, looking at large, expensive, high-quality, limited range of products, low-quality, cheap, small, and broad range of products. We used this benchmarking to plot as a map the competitors of Gap and Abercrombie & Fitch. Through this benchmarking system, we found that Abercrombie & Fitch mentioned a limited range of product and it was very expensive, whereas Gap had a broad range of product, high quality, and slightly cheaper than Abercrombie & Fitch. We also looked at many competitors. For example, American Eagle was very expensive and had very large stores, whereas Aeropostale was very cheap, broad range of products, and primarily for young people.
Gap has a strong physical resources with over 3,500 stores worldwide, both company-owned and franchise stores. The most relevant aspect for Abercrombie & Fitch in terms of physical resources is the design and layout for all their stores, which make them unique and recognizable. Thanks to their expansion on the international platform, Gap has performed positively from the financial point of view, which resulted in rising net sales, increase in earnings per share, which made them able to return cash to shareholders. Likewise, Abercrombie & Fitch has shown an increase in cash flow in 2013. This increased the company's cash balance and improved its capacity to pay shareholders. Gap employs around 136,000 employees, both part-time and full-time, including also seasonal employees. Abercrombie & Fitch, on the other hand, accounts for only 15,000 both part-time and full-time employees, including those hired during the peak seasons. Both companies have their trademarks registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the registries of countries where stores are located or to be located in the future. Gap makes use of highly qualified professionals. For example, for marketing, they hired Michael Cape, who's got 23 years of marketing and brand management experience, and he's in charge of overseeing all aspects of marketing of the Old Navy brand, including advertising, promoting, and public relations activities. Abercrombie & Fitch, on the other hand, focuses more on social media platforms to do their marketing. Gap has a strong internal control. In fact, all aspects of brand development, from product design and distribution to marketing, merchandising, and shopping environments, are controlled by the company. Abercrombie & Fitch have tried to develop their internal brands as well. The most recent one is the development for Gilly Hicks, which did not experience a positive outcome, which resulted in a lack of customer acceptance, facing also new retailers coming with differentiated product range. Both companies are outsourcing their products. In 2012, 98% of Gap's purchased merchandise was produced outside the US, and only 2% produced domestically. Similarly, Abercrombie & Fitch is sourcing from vendors located throughout the world, especially in Asia and Central and South America. As they feel the pressure of the competition, Gap's managerial strategy is to focus on their skilled people because they believe that their success depends on the continued contribution of the key employees. Abercrombie & Fitch focuses on their staff as well. In fact, they provide training programs and internships for potential candidates on areas such as retailing, merchandising, and financial systems. Lastly, the area of specialization is very similar too. They both offer apparel, accessories, and personal care products for men, women, and kids, with Abercrombie & Fitch more targeting young customers.
We found that Gap's strategy was to gain a market share, invest in lead digital innovation, and start a franchise in 2013 in Old Navy, and further global expansion. It also used a structure in a very high hierarchical system, which means a top-down approach. We can also see Gap's awareness for community. As we look further down in our staff, we can see that they employ more than 135,000 employees, encouraging employees to volunteer in communities and engage with customers. They were also recently in the news for hiring one of the oldest persons in the UK and making her staff manager. Overall, when we look at the shared value, we can see that they follow their motto, which is wear your passion, and have a very strong community and ethical responsibility. And for them, customer service is very, very important. When looking at Abercrombie & Fitch, we can see that they also use a line of command which is used top-down approach in the structure, meaning the authority is very hierarchical. And its heavy dependency on management is very clear. In the system, they have both hard leadership and soft leadership, meaning soft leadership, they allow workers to have flexible working hours, but on the other hand, they are strict appearance policies. This is because their shared value focuses on image. This is very important to Abercrombie & Fitch because it would rather be selling a lifestyle, not just clothing. But Abercrombie & Fitch use a rational goal model to simplify their objectives, and Gap used an open system model. As a process of applying the techniques, we used Mackenzie 7S's framework matrix. This was used to isolate the strategic differences between the 7 elements and also to differentiate both Gap and Abercrombie's techniques. By doing this, we could see how the firms change or adapt their S's to fit in their consistent with their strategy. Also, to see that it is possible to change one strategy to fix the existing orientation of the other 6 elements of the models. Also, to see that a compromise between each option is a realistic alternative. Looking at the graph, we could see that the alignment strategic fit was personally favourable to Gap, although Abercrombie & Fitch went far behind.
Between the years 2011-2012, Gap's net sale has increased by 7.57%. In the same years, Abercrombie & Fitch net sales increased by 8.48%. Even though the overall net sales value for Gap was a lot greater in these 2 years than Abercrombie, the increase year-on-year was greater for Abercrombie & Fitch. Between the same years, Gap's net income has increased by 36.25%. In the same years, Abercrombie net income increased by 64.67%. Gap's earning per share was $2.35, which is less than Abercrombie & Fitch, which earned $2.89 per share. This shows that both companies are profitable. This is because they both provide a return to the investors, with Abercrombie being greater as well as both retaining a high share value. For the dividend value given to the investor, Abercrombie & Fitch give a greater return of $0.70 when compared to Gap's $0.50 dividend. Gap's ROCE was 26.70%, while for the same year Abercrombie & Fitch provided 12.47%. This shows that Gap uses the capital efficiently more than Abercrombie & Fitch. Both Gap and Abercrombie & Fitch have stores developed in different countries, with Gap operating through company-owned stores, various franchise agreements, and online retail websites. Also, Abercrombie & Fitch offers its merchandise through web portals, which have expanded the company's customer base significantly. One weakness in common is the dependence on third-party vendors. They do not own any factories, and in this way the company's success really depends on timely receipt of quality merchandise from third-party manufacturers. Online channel has been growing in popularity as the most preferred channel for several customers. The online shopping activity is also increasingly becoming popular in China and Japan, which turns in favor for Gap as the company is expanding to the Asian market. The widespread online reach would enable Gap to attract an increasing number of customers who seek convenience in their shopping experience. An interesting opportunity for Abercrombie Fitch is the growing apparel industry in the US. The growth of the men's apparel market is expected to accelerate with increasing demand for casual clothing. A similar trend was noticed in the US women's casual wear department. Another common aspect for both companies is the growing market for fake products. Some of the major factors include the growing internet usage, extension of international supply chains, and more recently, the global economic downturn that led the customers to look for low-cost alternatives. Competition is another threat that they both face. Gap's brands compete not only with the small specialty retailers, but also with the larger department stores and emerging direct-to-consumer suppliers. Also, Abercrombie & Fitch faces competition in the local markets from established chains as well as the local specialty stores.